Hey, welcome back to MetFlex and Chill. This is Rachel Gregory, your host, and today is a solo episode. I'm going to be chatting all about vacation tips. So I've gotten a bunch of questions recently, a bunch of comments and questions recently, especially getting back from my recent trip from Hawaii about how to manage vacation when it comes to sticking with your goals, things to focus on, things to not focus on. And I did get one question in particular in my last Q&A box. Well, it was a few questions in one. So I want to address those and I want to chat all about how to manage vacations, right? And what to focus on when you are going on vacation, before you even go on vacation, what to focus on while you're on vacation in terms of nutrition, exercise, movement, and just kind of break down lots of tips and strategies that I use myself and that I use with all my clients. And so hopefully this will help you to feel more comfortable as you're going on vacation, especially, summertime. Everybody's hopefully going on vacation this summer, especially with last summer being a little bit crazy with COVID and everybody's plans probably getting canceled. So hopefully you're enjoying some vacations this summer, and hopefully this episode will help you to enjoy it a little bit more and to not feel any guilt on vacation, because that's the biggest thing. We don't want to feel guilt when it comes to nutrition or training or anything like that when we're going on vacation or when we're coming back from vacation. And that's what this episode is for. It's to give you tips and strategies to avoid that. So I'm excited to get into this. Before I do, I have one quick announcement. So right now we are trying to get into the top 100 on health podcasts on iTunes. And the main way to do that is to get ratings and reviews for the show. So if you have not left a rating and review yet and you are listening to the show and you're finding value from the show, please head over to iTunes, leave a 5-star rating, leave a review for what you enjoy about the show. And I'm also offering an exciting giveaway. So over the course of the next few weeks, I'll be announcing this on the upcoming podcasts. But I will be choosing one person who's left a review. I'll be choosing that person to have a 1-hour consult call with me. So 1 hour to ask any questions you have, anything at all to chat about that you want to ask me about or talk to me about. I will give you feedback, obviously related to hopefully like nutrition and fitness and training and anything that you have in that regard. So I will be choosing one person to have a free 1-hour consult call. And that person will be chosen at random from the reviews that will be posted from starting now until over the next few weeks. So if you have not left a rating review yet, please head over to iTunes. Do that. If you've already left a rating and review and you want to be put into the giveaway for the free consult call, you can actually, take like your spouse's phone or one of your friend's phone and you can leave a review from their phone, because iTunes only lets you do it from one account once. So if you've already done it before and you want to get in on the reviews get in on the consult giveaway, you can just ask your friend or someone for their phone, leave a review from their phone, and just make sure you leave your name there as well. And then I will be announcing that in the coming weeks after we have about 3 weeks of time for everybody to leave a review. So if you haven't, that would be amazing. And hopefully you enjoy this episode. I think you're going to, because there's a lot of tips that I'm going to give. There's a lot of takeaways that I think that will help you in your future travel, future vacations, and all of that jazz. So anyway, let's get into today's episode. And yeah, let's do it. Okay, so I'm going to read through the original question that I got that prompted me to actually record this podcast on, vacation tips and things to focus on. So the original question was, hi, I recently found your podcast, which I thoroughly enjoy as I've been doing a strict high protein TKD, CKD approach. TKD, CKD just stands for targeted ketogenic diet or cyclical ketogenic diet approach, with one refeed day per week the last 6 months with great success after strict keto for a couple years. So I'm loving metabolic flexibility. Love to hear that. I have a question for your Q&A podcast. I'm at the end of my cut phase in which I've lost about 30 pounds and I go on a 2-week vacation 3 weeks from now. I want to fully enjoy my vacation and expect to gain some weight, of course, especially water with going off keto. Do you have any tips on how to not go off the rails too much to avoid excessive fat gain with regards to diet and exercise during vacation to be reasonable but still enjoy my time and foods? I could definitely use some tips on eating, like should I continue tracking calories and or macros? Should I shoot for maintenance? What about enjoying alcohol, which I've been avoiding? I was planning on resistance training by bringing my bands and my TRX on my trip and doing cardio, walks, and jogs. Thanks for all you do. Really appreciate it. Okay, so bunch of questions in there. So what I'm going to do is dive into all of the tips that I focus on and that I recommend for my personal clients when they're traveling or going on vacation or planning a vacation. So I have some main bullet points that I'm going to just go through throughout this podcast. And yeah, so let's get into it. So the first thing and the main thing that I always do for myself and I recommend is before going on vacation, before traveling or anything like that, you need to first set your intentions for that specific trip or that specific vacation, right? Is it something that you've been looking forward to all year? Is it like your main vacation for the year? Or is it just another, weekend trip or maybe like a mini vacation? That's the biggest thing to think about, right? Because most of us tend to plan, at least from what I know and from what I do and working with my clients, we tend to plan like our main vacations ahead of time, right? So like during the year, maybe we have like a week or 2 weeks of vacation that are planned ahead of time. They're bigger trips. They're things that we look forward to for a long period of time versus, the smaller trips, maybe, the holiday weekends away, the long weekends, things like that. So with that being said, the first thing you want to do is just set your intentions for that specific trip or that specific vacation. Is it the vacation that you've been looking forward to all year long? Is it, something that you've been planning for a while, or is it just maybe just another kind of weekend trip or whatever? So for example, I'll give you an example of myself. So I went to Hawaii a few weeks ago. I had planned that Hawaii vacation like a year ago. I was there for a week, and my intentions going into that vacation from the get-go were to enjoy myself as much as possible. I was planning to not track macros, to not do any formal exercise. That was going to be my week off from lifting, or my main week off from lifting for the year. Again, I wasn't tracking. I was obviously being mindful of what I was doing, but I was having more splurges than usual, but I enjoyed it. I went into that vacation. I went into that trip knowing that I was going to kind of go off my norm, right? And enjoy myself as much as possible, not worry about my food intake, not feel guilty about it, and all that. I obviously still, stuck with the thing, like the tips that I'm going to explain on like throughout this podcast. A lot of those things I obviously did. But with that main vacation, it was my main vacation of the year. And so I knew going into it that my intentions were to, not worry about tracking macros, not worry about getting to the gym and lifting and things like that. So that was my intention for that trip. So I went into it knowing that, right? I was set up, like my mindset was in a good place going into it because I knew exactly, what this trip was and what I wanted to get out of it. Versus a few weeks later for 4th of July, I traveled to my parents' house in New York, and it was still kind of a mini vacation. It was about 5 days long, and we ate out at restaurants a lot. We had a 4th of July party, but with that trip, it was more so, it wasn't like my main vacation, and I was like, I'm still in the middle of my goals right now, right? And so with that trip, I was much more strategic with what I was doing. I was tracking, but focusing more so on some things that I'm going to talk about, some tips I'm going to give in this episode. And I, got my lifting sessions in. I went to my parents' gym. Like I made it a priority to do what I knew would make me feel good and make me feel like I was staying on track with my goals. And with that, it was still a little mini vacation, but it was more so, it wasn't my main vacation of the year. So I knew going into it, my intentions were, okay, I need to do these specific things because this is what's going to make me feel the best and know that I'm sticking within the goals that I want to stick in. So that is kind of just an example of the two different, I guess, scenarios you can call it. And really it's just, having the intention going into it and knowing what your intentions are and what you want to get out of it. So that's the biggest thing, because that needs to happen first before anything else that I'm going to talk about happens, because that's going to dictate how you go about all the things I'm going to suggest, right? So if you're going to track macros or not, or if you're going to track calories and macros, or if you're not going to track, how, with your splurges, are you going to splurge, a few times versus just maybe one or two splurges, right? Or many times versus one or two. Are you going to consume alcohol? Like, how much alcohol are you going to consume? Are you going to exercise? Are you going to have, are you going to stick with your formal exercise sessions, or are you just kind of going to go with the flow or just focus on movement? So these things are all the things I'm going to go into. And this is why you just need to first go into it with, again, I'm going to repeat myself a million times, with intention and being mindful of what you want to get out of that specific trip, and planning ahead, right? I always talk about planning ahead. It's huge when it comes to any goals that you have, especially with, if you want to have some more flexibility and you don't want to feel guilty about it. You shouldn't feel guilty about going on vacation and enjoying yourself, especially if it's one of the ones that is, something that happens once a year, right? Or twice a year, whatever it may be. So that would be the first step, is just set your intentions for your trip, right? And do this ahead of time. Take some time to think about it. Think through what you want to get out of it, and even write it down, right? Like pen to paper, write it down so that you can continue to remind yourself during your vacation, like, hey, this is what my intentions were going into it. No matter what comes up or what happens, like, this is what I'm focusing on. So that would be the first thing. Another kind of, I'm going to just go through some tips, and based off of the original question I got about tracking versus not, exercising versus not, I'm going to kind of just go down the line. So another thing to think about when you are planning for your trips or your vacations and things like that, if you do have specific goals, right? So for example, when I was in Hawaii, I was in the middle of a fat loss phase. And so I knew that I set my diet break to be during that week, obviously. And so with that, I made sure right before, like the week before, because I was in my fat loss phase, because I knew coming back from vacation, I'd still be in my fat loss phase. I made sure that I was super dialed in the week before going on vacation. And I do this for most vacations or travel tips. And it depends, what stage I'm in or what I'm doing with my goals. But realizing that you can be, and you don't have to do this, but it's just a strategy, right? These are all just strategies and tips that you can, take and do what you want with. So with this strategy, it's more so, kind of the week before the vacation is just making sure that you're super dialed in with your calorie intake and potentially incorporating some calorie cycling methods, right? So we know that our weekly caloric intake makes much more difference when it comes to fat loss or maintenance or whatever it is than our daily intake, right? So this also kind of can be extrapolated into our monthly intake, right? We don't really look at it on a monthly basis because that's just way too long of a time. But we can look at it on a weekly basis. And this is what I recommend. And I talked about this a little bit in a previous episode when I was talking about tracking macros, but looking at calories more so as a budget, right? So like with money, we budget our money, so we budget our calories. And so if we know that, like, if there's going to be days where it's more likely that you're going to, go over your calorie goal, or you are, going on vacation the following week, you can absolutely be strategic about this and maybe pull some calories back the week before to kind of balance it out a little bit. And again, you don't have to do this, right? You don't have to do this. This is just one strategy to think about if you are maybe in the middle of a certain phase in your fitness and nutrition journey, whatever it may be, or your physique journey, right? So pulling calories the week before. So maybe, pulling a few hundred calories a day, just because we know that calories don't reset overnight, right? We know that, if we're looking at our weekly budget, if we're looking at our monthly budget, like it all kind of goes into the same pool. And so if we maybe pull back on calories one week and because we know we're going to splurge a little bit more or consume more calories the following week, then it balances each other out a little bit more, right? Versus, not doing that. But again, you don't have to, it's just a strategy, right? So think about maybe, if you're going to go on vacation and you really want to make sure you're dialed in the week before, and you want to get as much out of it as possible, especially if you're in a fat loss phase, it could make sense to, maybe pull some calories back. So like I said, taking a few hundred calories out a day, or maybe incorporating some some fasting or like a PSMF day. I talk about PSMF days a lot on this podcast. I actually recorded a full podcast on PSMF days with my friend Robert Sikes. If you're not familiar with those, I will link that in the show notes so you can check it out. But this is just a strategy, right? So it allows you to kind of save up for that week that you're going to be on vacation and save up some more calories in your budget, right? In your monthly budget, if we're looking at it on a monthly basis. And really you don't want to look at this as being restrictive, right? You want to look at it as being smart and strategic with your intake. That's really what it is. You're just literally planning your calorie budget, just like you plan your money, just like you plan your monthly budget, just like you probably planned your budget for planning this trip that you're going on. You're just doing the same thing with your caloric intake. And again, it shouldn't be looked at as restrictive. It should just be looked at as, smart and strategic, right? And again, you don't have to do this. This is just one way to maybe mitigate some of the overfeeding that you might be doing on vacation, which again is totally normal. You can totally do that. It's just one strategy. So calorie cycling is one thing that I would just think about. There's so many different ways to calorie cycle. There's so many different methods. But the biggest thing is just realizing that calories don't reset overnight. And you can absolutely look at your budget on a monthly basis and kind of strategically make adjustments on a weekly basis and kind of flow with that. So hopefully that makes sense. So that would be kind of just the calorie cycling tip. And then kind of getting into this next question about tracking. So with tracking, there's really no right or wrong answer here at all, especially when it comes to vacation. It really just depends, again, on what your intentions are with going into this vacation. So if you are I'll start with tracking if you're going to track. So if you're going to track, and if you plan to track your macros and your calories on vacation while you're, eating at restaurants and eating out, and you still want to kind of enjoy yourself and enjoy some more flexibility, I highly recommend focusing mainly on calories and protein intake. These are going to be the big rocks. And by just focusing on protein and calories, it gives you more flexibility, but it also ensures that you're hitting your protein goal each day without going, and also ensures that you're sticking within your calorie goal without going too far overboard. So if you do want to track and you do want to do that, I would recommend more so, like I said, focusing on just mainly calories and proteins and protein, and kind of letting carbs and fats fall where they may. Because especially with traveling, especially on vacation, if you're getting super neurotic about the amount of carbs and fats you're consuming, especially when you're eating out at restaurants and you're doing a lot of guesstimating, it can just add more stress and just more unnecessary stress. So with me, whenever I'm traveling, whenever I know I'm going to be eating at restaurants a lot, or on vacation and I'm tracking, or traveling out and I'm tracking, I just focus on protein and calories. And I recommend this for a lot of my clients. And I also do this, during diet break times, which tend to fall on those vacation and travel times. Again, it just makes things so much less neurotic, and it actually can be a lot less stressful. So if you want to track, that would be my biggest tip, focusing on protein and calories, because that's going to help you stay in check, especially with protein, making sure you're getting your daily protein in. That's the hardest thing to come by on vacation. I'm going to talk about that in a second, a little bit more. But that would be the priority there. If you don't want to track, that's totally fine, right? But you just want to make sure that you are being aware and you're being mindful of the choices you're making, and, specifically when it comes to portion sizes and things like that. So it all comes back to just being mindful with that. So, still focusing on making sure you're getting your protein in, because again, that's going to keep you full and satiated throughout the day. And it's going to actually help you avoid overconsumption of other foods, right? So with that being said, like, for example, when I went to Hawaii, I did not track my food, but I knew at my main meals, I knew that I need to get my protein in. I stocked up on some protein snacks, which I'm going to talk about in a second. And I made sure that that was my priority, because I knew for me, protein keeps me full, keeps me satiated. It helps me to, like I said, avoid eating a bunch of random things just because it's there, or just because I might be a little bit more hungry, or having some cravings because I'm around, all these things. So protein really helps with that. So that would be the biggest thing there. And I did want to give you kind of a little insight into one of my clients that I actually just had this conversation with 2 weeks ago, a few weeks ago, as we were kind of planning her vacation, because she is in the middle of a fat loss phase. She's been absolutely crushing it. She's had tremendous progress the last few months with tracking. But for her, as we kind of worked through some things, she had a weekend trip away that she went to, I think it was Disney World with her family. And she tried to track there, and it was really, really stressful. And it made her more stressed. It made her more neurotic. And we realized that when she feels like her tracking isn't super accurate, it actually stresses her out more. And it makes her kind of just throw in the towel altogether. So this can be very common for some people, especially if you're used to tracking pretty accurately, and maybe you cook a lot of your food at home, and then you go out or you travel and you're eating out at restaurants and you're trying to track all these little things and they're just not accurate, and then you feel like you failed, right? We don't want that, because first of all, we know when we're eating at restaurants, when we're eating foods that other people prepare, like it's never going to be 100%. We're always going to be guesstimating, and that's totally fine. And that will, guesstimating and becoming more familiar and doing it more often, you'll be surprised how accurate you can actually get as you continue to learn the skill and to do it. But for some people, it can actually be a negative thing, and it can feel more complex and more stressful to track things and not actually know, how accurate they are, right? So everybody's different, right? But so for sorry, I don't want to say my client's name. For my client, we decided together that it would be a good idea to take a break from tracking to really focus on things that she knew she could control as best to her best ability, right? Because she had, just like me, she has a type A personality, wants everything to kind of be in order. And like I said, we found that the tracking on vacation was just more stressful, and it was actually leading to, like I said, her throwing in the towel and kind of just saying whatever. And it just wasn't a good situation for her. So what we decided was, as she's going on her trips, coming up, she has a vacation that she's on right now, actually. We decided that we're going to take a break from tracking, and we're just really going to focus on the key things that I mentioned before. So portion control, mindfulness, planning ahead, focusing on protein, those types of things. And I'm going to get into a few more of those in a second, but we literally went into the vacation and the trip deciding not to track, right? And so I want to give you a little bit of feedback. She actually just checked in with me a few days ago, and she's been on her trip for a few days already. I'm going to read out what she said in her feedback, because I think this is going to resonate with a lot of people. So she said, "I'm several days into my trip, and so far so good. I haven't tracked since last Wednesday, but I'm being mindful of protein and really trying to restrain myself with portion control. I just really appreciate all the good, positive advice. You giving me the green light not to track has been the biggest gift. I don't feel guilty for not doing it, and it's put me in the right mental state to want to be careful of my food choices and mindful of what I'm ingesting. It's working really well for me. I don't feel like I've gained weight. I feel the same as I did last Wednesday when I left Maryland, which is very motivating. Thank you. This may change my life, as I tend to travel a lot." So again, I just wanted to share that with you, because I know that, a lot of people listening probably travel a lot. They probably struggled with this in the past, and it's okay to not track. It just, you just have to kind of make realize that you are making some trade-offs. But if you can be more mindful of what you're doing, if you have less stress with not tracking, and you can pay attention to all the other things that we just mentioned, you might be better off with not tracking. But again, this is so individual to the person, because everybody is different. For some of my clients, I do recommend tracking. I do recommend paying attention to calories and protein if they are at a specific time in their journey. If it's not, one of those vacations that's like the one where you're kind of the main one of your year, right? Like I talked about, that's when you just have to kind of decide for yourself, like, what do you think is going to allow you to adhere to the overall plan as best as possible. And so for this client, we decided that the adhering to the plan would be more successful if she was doing it without tracking. So with that being said, I did actually record an episode, I think it was last week or the week before, about tracking macros. So I believe it's episode 120. So that is an episode I dive into, why I recommend tracking for specific goals, how it can be useful, the different tiers to tracking macros based off of your experience level, based off of your specific goals and things like that. So definitely check out that episode if you haven't already, because that one dives into all about tracking and some more tips in that regard. So hopefully that helps. And then a few other tips that I'm going to get into for vacation. So the next one would be thinking about your splurges, right? And splurging strategically, right? So having strategic splurges, splurging strategically, whatever you want to call it. So with this, the biggest thing is just, again, planning ahead and being strategic with what you choose to splurge on and making the decision to do it and not feel guilty about it, right? So with that, I always recommend, and this is what I think about, for myself, is really just save your splurges for the things that you're really going to enjoy. And, think about that ahead of time. Take some time as, for example, as you're setting your intentions for your trip, take some time to think through what the things are that you truly are looking forward to and that you're truly going to enjoy. And maybe some of the foods that you're not used to having on a normal basis and that you are looking forward to, right? Whatever foods or meals those are, so that you have a plan going into the vacation, right? Or going into the travel. That is one of the biggest things that can be super eye-opening. Like if you know for sure that I'll give another example of myself. So, let's see. I think my vacation last year is probably the first time where I really started, this was like about a year and a half ago, where I really started making the intentions beforehand, which has absolutely changed the way that I go into my vacations now. But I was in Miami and I went to school. I went to undergrad at the University of Miami, and there's a lot of restaurants and kind of nostalgic places there and foods that I, haven't eaten in a while and I enjoy, and things that I look forward to having. So, last year there's a place called Latin House, and it's like the best burrito you will ever eat in your life. If you're in Miami and you haven't checked out Latin House and you're looking to eat the best burrito in your life, check it out. It's a deep fried burrito that has cheese in the center. Like it has a cheese tortilla. Then it's filled with vaca frita, which is a type of meat, and rice and just other stuff. Fried plantains as well. And then it's deep fried. So it's literally like probably the most calorie dense thing you could ever eat. Probably not the most nutritious thing ever, but it is something that I looked forward to having. And one thing I did actually was, instead of having the whole burrito, which I totally could have ate on my own, I split it in half with the person I was traveling with, which in itself, that was a mindful decision, right? A portion control decision. I knew that I didn't need to eat the whole burrito to really enjoy it. I knew I just needed half of it to enjoy it. And I did. But I set that intention. I set that plan ahead of time. I knew that that was what I was splurging on, or at least one of my main splurges. Another one was from a cupcake shop that I love in Miami, called Buttercream. They have these little cupcakes. They're the best cupcake I've ever had. And I knew that I was, going there, and I was planning it, and I planned that splurge, and I went into it enjoying it and, not feeling guilty at all. And so that, that's something to think about. Like if you're going to splurge, if you're going to, enjoy these foods that you might not be used to enjoying, or, not part of your normal routine. Like obviously a big deep fried burrito is not part of my normal routine. Cupcakes are usually not part of my normal routine. So just planning ahead and just being intentional about it. So the reason for this is because the biggest mistake that a lot of people make is just eating food just because it's, more available, or maybe other people around you are eating it, right? You're traveling, you're, eating at restaurants, maybe you're with people, especially on vacation or, holiday trips, things like that, where there might be some buffets and whatever it may be. The biggest mistake a lot of people make is just eating the food because it's in front of them and it's available, right? So if you're only eating it because it's there and it's really not something that you truly enjoy, then make the decision to save those calories for something else that you really know that you're going to enjoy, right? Don't just eat it because it's in front of you or because other people are eating it. And I know this is easier said than done, but this all comes back to that mindful piece of it. Like being mindful and just being aware of what you're doing is huge, because if you can be mindful, if you can, literally stand around a counter of that's filled with just food and chips and salsa and stuff like that. What I was around on 4th of July, things like that. if you know, like, for sure that you're going to enjoy having that chips and dip, then have it and enjoy it. But if you know that, you're not a huge fan of chips and they don't really satisfy you, you don't really look forward to having them, but everybody else is eating them. And if you know that it's not really something that you enjoy and you'd rather spend that, quote unquote, spend those calories on something else, then just think through that, right? Think through the decisions you're making and be strategic with it. Be strategic with your splurges. That's the biggest thing. And don't just, consume the foods because they're there, right? And this is, it's something called, oh my gosh, I'm blanking on the term, the scarcity mindset, right? You're feeling like because maybe you don't have these foods on a normal basis, or they're not in your house on a normal basis, and then all of a sudden they're in front of you, you feel like, oh my God, like I never have these, so I have to eat all of it as much as possible right now. That is the mindset that causes issues. That is the restrictive mindset. That is the scarcity mindset. And we need to get away from that because those foods are always going to be available, right? The chips, the dip, the cookies, the cake, like they're always going to be there. They're not going anywhere. They're going to be there for your entire life, right? So if you have this mindset going into it that you are, that you're like, oh my gosh, like I never have this, so I'm just going to eat it all right now. That is going to make you feel not great afterwards. That is what's going to lead to that guilt afterwards. So again, just being mindful and being strategic about what you're, quote unquote, spending your splurges on, and choose things that you know for sure that you're looking forward to and that you're going to enjoy, because I promise you, you're going to feel so much better afterwards. You're not going to feel guilty. You're going to say, hey, like I looked forward to that. I enjoyed the crap out of that. And I'm just going to move on and get back into my like normal, whatever, eating. So that's one of the biggest things to think about in terms of splurges. It's just be mindful and choose things that you truly enjoy. Okay, so I did want to give a little bit more feedback on this in terms of my last client that I mentioned, because she actually, another part of her check-in recently was about this, because we talked about this. So she said, I resisted the urge to just eat and snack because everyone else was. You gave me this advice in last week's video check-in, and it really resonated with me. Now, when the group I'm with is partaking in something, I ask myself if I'm really hungry and need that, or if I just feel like I should have it because everyone else is. I know that has saved me some calories. So that was feedback from my client, like I mentioned, and it just kind of goes back to, really just taking the time to be mindful about what you're consuming and if it's really worth it for you, or if you, if you want to save those calories for something that you know for sure you're going to enjoy and it's going to be worth it. So that would be strategic splurges. And then also, I know there was a question about alcohol in this first main question. So alcohol is a big one too, and this comes in with the splurges and the strategic splurges. So if you truly enjoy, if you truly want to enjoy if you are a fan of alcohol, if you enjoy what you're drinking, if you, are looking forward to that, there's nothing wrong with it. But you need to think about, okay, am I truly going to enjoy this drink? Or am I just drinking because the people around me are drinking and, it's vacation and so I can drink and blah, blah, blah. Or are you actually choosing options that you truly, literally, as you're sipping on it, you're enjoying it. It's something that tastes good to you. Obviously, if it gives you a little bit of buzz, if that's what you enjoy, then that's fine. But you just need to think through this first, right? Think through, are you truly going to enjoy it? Is it going to be worth it for you? Are you do you want to spend those extra calories that you're consuming on this alcoholic beverage, or do you want to spend it on something else, right? So for me personally, I'm not a huge alcohol drinker. And the main reason is because I typically don't like the taste of most alcohol. Like I'm not a big beer fan. I don't like the taste of it. If I'm going to drink alcohol, I make sure that it tastes good to me. It's something I'm really, really enjoying. And so for me, it's more worth it to spend those calories on food, really. And again, there's no right or wrong here. It all just depends on what you are going to enjoy most for yourself and what's worth it to you. So if you do decide to drink, and maybe you are trying to stick within, keeping calories, as minimal as possible, or as in control as possible, What I would recommend is, if you are on vacation, right, and you are in a place that offers like lots of sugary drinks or things like that, and you do want to have one of those because you're going to enjoy it, then I would say, do that, like plan that into your day. So for example, I'm thinking back to when I was in Hawaii, they had lots of frozen drinks, particularly one, it was called a lava flow. And it was just like a super sugary, basically like a mix between a strawberry daiquiri and a pina colada. It was so good, but it was legit just sugar and I think it was vodka. I don't know, some type of liquor, sugar blended up. And it was really, really good. It was basically like drinking, I don't even know. It was just really good. So I knew that, I wanted to have one of those when I went to Hawaii, but I knew that if I drank one of those every single day, or if I drank multiple of them a day, that would add up in a ton of calories. Because those sugary drinks, like those frozen pina coladas, those frozen strawberry daiquiris, like they are a ton of calories. And I knew that I wanted to have one, but I knew that I wanted to make sure that I wasn't going overboard with it. So that's what I did. I had one of those maybe a few times. I didn't have them every day. I didn't have multiples, but I allowed myself, and I told myself I was going to have one of them, like maybe every other day. And I did that, and I enjoyed it. And then if I wanted to drink more after that, I chose other options that were lower calorie and maybe less ingredients. So a few examples would be, and some things that I did. So like a mojito, having a mojito and asking for less simple syrup. Simple syrup is what makes it sweet. So ordering a mojito with maybe no simple syrup or just requesting a very little amount, and either enjoying that on its own, or you can actually add in a few drops of like liquid monk fruit or liquid stevia. That is going to give it back its sweetness, and it's going to obviously be no calories. So you'll save a bunch of calories there while still enjoying that type of drink. You can do like skinny margaritas, the same type of thing there. Just be careful with the skinny margaritas, because if you see them on a menu, they're typically going to use, like, they'll call them skinny, but they'll still use like simple syrup or like agave syrup, and use a bunch of that too, which will add up in calories. And obviously like lots of sugar and stuff like that. So just be mindful of that. But you can do the same type of thing with the mojito. You can order a margarita with no sweetener. Just say you don't want any syrup or anything like that. Add your own to it. Add your own stevia or monk fruit. I carry around like a little squirt bottle of monk fruit, and there's nothing wrong with that. And if people look at you weird while you're squirting monk fruit into your margarita, then just tell them to look the other way if it bothers them. So that would be an option. You can just do, lower calorie options. So like any type of liquor with a diet soda, maybe you choose a hard seltzer drink, like a White Claw. Maybe you choose like a liquor with soda water, and again, add your own sweetener or maybe your own stir-in. They make these like little powdered packets that are flavored packets that you can carry. I know Element makes those electrolyte packets, and they make them in actually different flavors that you could add, like flavored salts. So that's a great option. What else? You can ask for like just vodka and soda water and like maybe a small splash of juice just to add a little bit more flavor there. So there's so many different options. But again, with alcohol, it really just comes down to, what's worth it for you. Like, what are you just drinking because everybody around you is drinking? Or are you drinking because you're truly enjoying it? Like, are you enjoying what you're drinking? Is it worth it to you? Is the trade-off of consuming, extra calories in the form of alcohol, which we know is just kind of empty calories, right? Is that worth it to you with where you're at right now and with what you're doing, right? And it all comes back to those intentions you have going into that trip. So that is alcohol. I have a few more tips here. I know I'm kind of rambling on, but there's a bunch of stuff to talk about. So the next tip would be, this kind of goes back to the protein tip that I was talking about. So stocking up on protein and maybe some low calorie or non-starchy veggie options. Like if you are traveling, you have a refrigerator available. Most hotels, if there's not a refrigerator, you can actually request one. Some Marriotts that I've been in, they don't. Some of the older ones don't have refrigerators, but they will like have the option to request like a mini fridge, and they'll bring it to you. So that's something to think about. But I feel like most hotels nowadays have refrigerators. But anyway, I would recommend, this really is actually independent of what your goals are going into the vacation. whether that's, the intentions that we talked about, whether it's a vacation where you're just kind of, enjoying yourself to the fullest, not focusing on tracking or exercise or anything like that, or if it's the other, type of vacation where you are trying to stay as dialed in as possible. Regardless of what that is, I would still recommend doing this. I actually did this in Hawaii as well. So stocking up on protein and lower calorie kind of munchies like veggies and things like that, just because having those things on hand, first of all, protein is typically the hardest thing to come by when you're on vacation or when you're traveling. It's a lot harder to, nowadays it's a little bit easier with like jerkies and protein bars and things like that. But in general, a lot of people tend to miss out on protein when they're traveling. And at least it becomes kind of an afterthought. So what I recommend is, stocking up on protein if you can. So a few suggestions and a few things that I do are getting deli meats, things like hard-boiled eggs, some Greek yogurt, like containers, some cottage cheese containers, things that are not non-perishable. So jerky, tuna packets, protein powder. You can bring your protein powder, have that for, making shakes or mixing it into your Greek yogurt to add some flavor. Those would be my biggest recommendations for protein sources. They also make one thing that I had on when I was in Hawaii is I got these like individually packaged chicken sausages that I found at the store. I forgot what the brand was, but if you just go in like the sausage section, those are great options because they're obviously individually packaged and you just throw them in the microwave. They're actually pre-cooked. So that's a great option. Just kind of thinking about those protein sources, having them on hand, because this is going to, again, it's going to keep you satiated, keep you full, and avoid kind of snacking on other little things, maybe in the mini bar of the hotel room that you're snacking on it because it's there and maybe you're hungry. So let's avoid that and let's just plan from the start. Like right when you land at your destination, go hit up the store. When I was in Hawaii, I went right to Target, bought a bunch of stuff, bought a bunch of seltzer waters, a bunch of like no calorie flavored water. So I had those on hand. Bought some diet sodas because I am Diet Coke is my weakness. And of course, on vacation, I'm going to enjoy some extra Diet Cokes because why not? So just stocking up on those things. And then in terms of like veggie snacks, so things that are super low calorie but have kind of that crunch factor to them. So snap peas are a big one, cucumber, like cucumber slices, mini cucumbers, cherry tomatoes, celery, mini bell peppers, things like that. Those are all very, very low calorie snacks, and you can put those in little Ziploc bags and just throw them in your purse. Sometimes like I'll do that if I know that I'm going, either going to a restaurant or going somewhere that there's going to be lots of dips and things like that, or people are just going to be snacking. Like if I'm going to the pool, like when I was in Hawaii, I went to the pool and instead of, snacking on chips and crackers and things like that, I just had like a bunch of veggies that like those non-starchy veggies and some protein, and it's super low calorie, but it gives you that crunch factor and it gives you that like, okay, I have this thing to keep me occupied, right? Versus, everybody else is eating around me and they're all eating chips and things like that. I have my snacks here, and these are what I know will, fill me up, keep me occupied, and still, stick within my goals. And then I can go enjoy that other meal out that I'm looking forward to, rather than spending my calories on chips and crackers, which I don't really enjoy that much. So that would be my tip there in terms of just stocking up beforehand and making sure you have things on hand so that you're prepared, right? And that would be for any type of travel or anything like that. And then the next thing would be intermittent fasting. So intermittent fasting is just another tool that you can use. So this kind of goes back to the calorie cycling side of things. So just pushing your eating window off a bit further. So if you, normally eat breakfast, maybe on vacation, you intermittent fast a little bit more, and you kind of push your first meal off to like 11 or noon. So you can enjoy maybe like a bigger meal, like with brunch with your friends or family, whoever you're traveling with. And then you have more kind of in your budget to budget towards dinner and maybe those meals out that you take much more emotional value from, right? So every meal that you eat, right, you take a certain amount of emotional value from, right? So for most people, breakfast is typically the lowest emotional value meal of the day. So if you plan to have like a bigger meal later on in the day, like I mentioned, If you have like a bigger brunch planned or a dinner planned, usually on vacation, you have like a nice dinner outing. So opt to potentially skip breakfast, maybe just drink some coffee, or have some type of just lean protein option to hold you over. So just straight protein or the protein veggies like I talked about, so that you can get more value out of your later meals that that you're going to enjoy more, right? That you're going to, maybe having the $30 eggs from the hotel breakfast bar. You're just kind of having them because they're there, or other people are eating them. Maybe you just skip that, right? Maybe you save, and when I say eggs, maybe like eggs and toast and pancakes or whatever it is. Maybe you skip that and you save those calories for the meals that that you're going to take much more emotional value from later on the day, right? If you're going to sit down to a nice dinner with your family or friends, you're going to take much more emotional value from that. So save it and intermittent fast and use that as a tool. I'm not saying you have to do this, but it is a good strategy to kind of, when we go back to thinking about kind of pushing and pulling calories and pushing more of your caloric budget towards the end of the day to save room for those meals that you truly will enjoy, and that you take more emotional value from with the people that you're enjoying them with. So just another tip. And then this brings me into restaurant tips. So eating at restaurants when you're traveling and when you're on vacation, most people are, eating out a lot, unless you are obviously, cooking for yourself and that type of vacation, which is totally fine. But if you are, traveling, you're eating at restaurants, the biggest tip I have for you, if you are looking to stick within your goals and make things as, make things as easy as possible for you to control, you want to choose foods and meals with the fewest ingredients as possible, right? So when you're eating out, look at the menu ahead of time, right? Even if it's a part of a vacation that you are going to splurge on some foods, I would still look up the menu ahead of time, get an idea of what meals will be practical for you and choices that fit into your goals, and know what you're going to order beforehand, or at least have an idea of that. And if you are tracking, a good idea is to pre-log it in MyFitnessPal or whatever tracking app you use, and doing this the day before or the morning of, so that you know how to budget the rest of your day, right? In terms of calories and things like that. So if you're tracking and you're, that's what you're doing on this trip, then I would say do that. Look it up ahead of time, at least just do some guesstimating on, pre-logging it. That will give you much more flexibility and freedom throughout the rest of the day. I always talk about structure equals freedom, having structure behind this, knowing what you're doing instead of just going into it kind of hoping for the best. That's going to make you feel so much better. And then it's going to make you feel, it's going to take away that guilt factor after the fact as well, because you planned it, you're ready, you're ready, and you're, what you're going to do. And it takes away that stress, right? It takes away that underlying feeling of, oh no, I'm going to this restaurant, I'm stressed out about it. Everybody else is going to be ordering a bunch of things, and I want to enjoy myself, but I don't want to go overboard. So just plan ahead, just have a strategy going into it, right? And if you're not tracking, right, just focusing on controlling what you can control. And this comes back to thinking through the complexity of the meal, right? So a less complex meal is going to be easier to track, and it's more likely to be tracked accurately if you are tracking. And even if you're not tracking, like I said, you'll be able to kind of control things a lot more in terms of portion sizes and what you're actually consuming versus, what you think you're consuming or what you might not know you're consuming. So identifying, these options on your menu and identifying the options that have, first, looking at the ones that have the fewest ingredients, again, because that's going to help you control. The fewer ingredients your meal has, the more room for error that you're actually removing from it, right? So things like, having a chicken or steak or fish entree where it's a steak or a chicken, and then it has some type of vegetable or starch on the side. Those are more individual, less complex ingredients. So more so you have a better idea of what you're consuming, versus if you got a stew or some type of, I don't know, casserole dish or something like that. Not saying that you can't have that. You can totally have that. But if you're looking to control as much as you can and be as aware of what you're consuming as you can, choosing the meals that have the less complex ingredients is probably going to be your best option. And with that being said too, obviously at restaurants, they cook with lots of oil and things like that. So just asking, right? Just asking your server, hey, can you maybe use less oil or just use no oil at all? Or, choosing things that might have high calorie ingredients in them. So if you're getting a big salad, yeah, salad's a great option. But if it has tons of like nuts and seeds and cheese and dressing and all of that, like that adds up really, really quickly. So if you're trying to control your portion sizes, if you're trying to control how much you're consuming and you want to have control over that, then ask the server to get these things on the side, right? So for example, for me, if I want to control as much of what I'm consuming at a restaurant as possible, I'm going to kind of break down the meal and ask for things on the side if I can. So for example, for a salad, like I always get the dressing on the side. If it is a salad that has like some different cheeses or some nuts and seeds, or some like higher calorie, add-ons, I typically ask for those on the side, and that's totally normal. You can totally do that. Either ask for them on the side, or if you know you really don't want them, just say, can I get this without this? When you ask for things on the side, you personally are able to physically control how much of it you're consuming, right? So dressing on the side, sauces on the side, cheese on the side, nuts and seeds on the side, like all of these things, it's totally fine asking for on the side because you get to control that versus whoever's, making the dish, controlling it for you. So that's one of the biggest things I would say is just, if you have specific goals and you know that you're going to feel better about what you're doing by breaking things down and maybe asking a few more questions or requesting things that maybe you're not used to requesting, that you need to become comfortable with that. And if people who you're traveling with or if people at the dinner table are looking at you weird because you're asking for your salad with 5 different things on the side, like who cares? Just say, hey, I just want to control how much I'm eating. Like I want to control what I'm putting on it. And there's nothing wrong with that, right? And if you ask the server nicely, I promise you that they will probably do it for you. And if you're just super nice about it, if you are just explain, maybe if they're kind of like they're kind of looking at you weird, you can even just make up a white lie that you have maybe an allergy to something, right? And you just want it on the side. So that's a good option. But anyway, with all that being said, just try to choose options that you can control best if that's what you want to do. So going back to talking about protein and veggies for a second. So we know that protein is the hardest macronutrient for your body to store as fat, right? This more so is because of it has the highest thermic effect of food. It's also, we know protein is the most satiating macronutrient. It makes you feel full, the most full, the longest, right? So if you are prioritizing your protein and prioritizing your veggies first in the meal that you're consuming, identify those first, right? Eat your protein dense food first on your plate, then go to your veggies, and then move to like maybe your veggies or your salad, and then move to the more fun foods, right? So, if you're ordering a steak with side vegetables and then maybe like mashed potatoes or macaroni and cheese or something, and that you're looking forward to that, okay, that's totally fine. Eat the steak first, fill up on that, then fill up on the veggies, and then move to the mac and cheese or the potatoes, because once you get there, you're already going to feel, a little bit full, right? So you'll be much more likely to not overeat or not consume as much of that as you would if you started off with that. And again, it comes back to, just realizing, okay, how much of this do I need to eat to actually feel satisfied and to feel, to enjoy it, right? Because you don't going back to the burrito situation, like, yeah, I could have ate that whole burrito, but I knew that first of all, if I ate the whole thing, it was probably not going to make me feel so great afterwards. And I knew that I only needed half of it to truly enjoy it and to truly, taste the flavors and really get out of it what I wanted. So that's one big thing too, is just how much of this food do you need to actually consume to enjoy it? Like it doesn't need to be the whole thing. It can be a small portion. So just something to think about. And then last tips here. Last one, I want to talk about exercise and movement. So with movement in general, paying attention to your movement throughout the day in general is always going to be important. And especially when you're going on vacation or you're traveling, if you have a daily step goal, which I have a daily step goal myself, most all of my clients do, don't ignore it just because you're on vacation, right? Get your steps in, focus on staying active and hitting even a higher step count, right? Because that is we know that just walking in general, you're going to be expending more calories. So if you are consuming a little bit more, then maybe that balances out. Like we don't necessarily want to be thinking about it as, oh, I'm going to exercise more or, walk more so that I can eat more. I don't like looking at it that way. But in reality, like if you're moving more, you are going to burn more calories. You're going to expend more energy. So that can help balance things out. So that's the easiest thing to do on vacation is just move more, right? So if you're going to the beach and you're going to be sitting on the beach all day, okay, make it a priority to go for a walk on the beach, or even, it doesn't even have to be like a huge long walk. You can take like 10-minute walks here and there. Or if you're going to be sitting at the pool, like go on a walk or start your day off, start your morning off with a walk. I promise you, you're going to feel so good if you do that. I did that every day in Hawaii and I felt great and I got tons of steps in. Another thing is just staying active, right? Hitting, like I said, hitting a higher step goal, walking when you can, just little things like taking the stairs versus the elevator. If you're traveling through an airport, not getting on that, like, what's that? Like, what is it? The escalator thing that doesn't actually have stairs. It's like the moving thing where you just stand on it and it moves you across the airport. I don't know what that's called, but I never take that because that causes me to get less steps. So when I'm in an airport, I'm literally thinking about all the ways that I can get more steps in and get more movement in. So, if I'm waiting for my flight, I'm going to, not sit down. I'm going to just pace around the area. Or if I'm waiting to get my bag, I'm going to be that person who's walking around the baggage carousel to get my steps in while I'm waiting rather than just standing there or sitting there, right? Just thinking about these little things, they add up, right? They might not seem like a big deal in the moment, right? Standing versus sitting, or, pacing around the baggage claim carousel thing for 10 minutes versus just standing there. That might not seem like a big deal in the moment, but those things add up over time, right? They add up over the course of the day, the week, the month. So if you can do whatever you can to just get more movement in and just be more aware of that, you're putting yourself in a much better situation, right? So that would be my tip with tips with movement. And also just like planning activities that that you're going to be maybe moving a little bit more. Like, so hiking in Hawaii, I did lots of hiking, just lots of walking around, things like that. And I knew that was obviously going to help me get my step goal and then just make me feel better because, if I'm moving more and I'm going on a big hike, then going into my lunchtime meal, then I'm going to I feel much better about having that extra splurge or whatever it is, right? So something to think about. So that's just general movement. And then we're talking about formal exercise. So this is something that I struggled with a lot personally when a few years ago, when I was just getting like super anal about my exercise and making sure that I got every single lift in. And even when I was traveling, I needed to like make sure that I had a gym available, or I was, a gym was nearby, or the hotel gym was nearby, whatever, or the hotel gym was available. So this is something that you need to think about for yourself. And you need to really, really think about, okay, what's going to make you feel best on your vacation, right? So for some people, getting up early and exercising, getting their lift in is going to set them up for a great day. It's going to get them in a good mindset. It's going to get them feeling good. And for others, it might add more stress. It's like, oh man, like I have to figure out how to get in this lift, and I'm with my family and they want to do, like, maybe they want to go out to breakfast, but I want to go get my workout in and it's just stressful for me. And I'm only doing it because it's, part of my schedule, like my normal schedule. That's a situation where you kind of have to think like, okay, is it actually worth it? And, another thing to think about is it time? And this is something that I struggle with a lot too. Like, we need to take breaks throughout the year. We need to take not a year. We need to take a week or 2 weeks off from training altogether to give our body a break, right? We have deload weeks, right? I have deload weeks, within my training. Sorry, I'm going to take a sip of water. And all my clients have deload weeks, but there comes a point in time, like throughout the year, that you should be taking a full week off, or at least 2 full weeks off from lifting. In my opinion, there's 52 weeks in a year. If you take 2 weeks off from lifting, that leaves you 50 weeks. Like, you're not going to be losing any progress. You're not going to be losing all your gains. So it might be time, like, if you're going on this long vacation, you're like stressing out about exercising, it actually might be time for you to take a break. It might be time for you to not go to the gym for a week and just focus on, movement, just focus on the like walking and things like that, hiking, whatever it may be, and not getting your lift in, like taking a full week off. And this is exactly what I did when I was in Hawaii. I knew that they did have a hotel gym. It was really nice. But I knew that I wanted to go into that trip and could take a complete week off from lifting. And that's what I did. I set my intention beforehand and I didn't feel 1 ounce of guilt during the time that I was there. So that's something to think about, right? So if it's time for you to take a break and you haven't taken, or if you haven't taken a week off in a year, then it might be time to do that. And this might be the best time, right? This vacation that you're on might be the best time to take a break. If it's just, another, weekend trip, or if you've taken time off already and you don't feel the need to, then just figure out a way to work that into your schedule for what's going to make you feel good and make you feel less stressed, right? Is that a shorter workout? Is that waking up early before everybody else does and getting it in beforehand? Just kind of figuring out what works with your schedule. So that would be the exercise side of things. And then just to finish off, I know I've been rambling on, but this, one of the things that I read in the question, I'm just going to bring this back up. It says, any tips on how to not go off the rails too much to avoid excessive fat gain with regard to diet and exercise during vacation? So with this, and then they said, I know I'm going to gain a little bit due to going off keto, due to having more food, things like that, some water weight. But how do I, not gain excessive fat on this week-long vacation or whatever it may be? So this is something that we need to just chat about real quick, because what does it actually take to gain a pound of fat? A pound of true fat. Let's just reel things back for a second and talk through how many extra calories you actually would need to consume to put on a pound of fat, right? So in general, there's about 3,500 calories in 1 pound of fat, right? We know that that's like a kind of an estimate of how many, calories make up a pound of true fat. This can be taken very, very literally by some people and with certain things, which I don't like to do. But when we are talking about the mathematics here, there's about 3,500 calories in a pound of fat. So if you came back from your week or 10-day long vacation and you step on the scale and you're 5 pounds heavier than you were before you left, that is not all fat. It would be pretty impossible for that to all be fat. So looking back at the math, so if you were, gaining 5 pounds of fat in 1 week would mean that you would have to roughly eat an extra 17,500 calories above your maintenance, right? So if you were, again, I'm going to repeat this. If you truly gained 5 pounds of fat, you would have had to eat an extra 17,500 calories over your maintenance intake for that week to truly potentially, and it's probably even more than that, right? It's definitely more than that. That's just like the minimum. That's a bare minimum of 17,500 calories to gain 5 pounds of fat at the bare minimum. Okay, this is pretty, impossible. Some people could probably do it, but that is an excessive amount of calories, right? So yes, you can gain a little bit of fat if you go completely off the rails and you consume way over your maintenance intake for multiple days on end, right? But for most people, that's not going to happen. So you need to just think through the practicality of this and think through, okay, if I come back from vacation and I step on the scale and it's 3 pounds up or 5 pounds up, I'm not going to freak out because I know that it was impossible for me to gain that much fat in just a week, because it is pretty impossible. So that is all coming from, the extra water weight that you're probably holding on to from foods that you're not used to, especially if you're going from keto to, having more carbs, right? Carbs hold on to water in your body. Think of, like a sponge, right? Carbs are a sponge in your body and they're going to soak up that water and hold on to it. So if you can just think of this analogy, like if you had a sponge that was squeezed out, right? That is, you put that on a little scale and you weighed that, right? That's going to weigh a certain amount. Then you soak that sponge in water and then you put it on the same scale. That's going to weigh more. So just think that's how carbs work in our body. They weigh more. They cause us to weigh more because they hold on to water. For every gram of carb, there's about 3 to 4 grams of water that go along with that carb. So if you went from keto to eating more carbs, especially on a vacation, like that's just going to be in itself, it's just going to be you're holding on to more water and it's just going to take time for your body to adjust to that. And then obviously, like when you're eating out at restaurants, more sodium. If you're eating more in general, there's just going to be more food in your gut, like more food content in your gut because you are consuming more foods. All of these things cause the scale to go up. And so the biggest thing here is just to take yourself back to reality and take yourself back to the mathematics of fat gain and think through that, because that will ground you a little bit more and help you freak out less. So hopefully that helps. And then I actually did record a podcast all about scale weight and why, I think it was the 7 reasons why the scale is lying to you about your progress. It was episode 118, I believe. So I will link that in the show notes. But if you come back from vacation, you step on the scale, the scale is up, you did not gain X amount of pounds in fat. There's so many other factors that are involved there. And the best thing you can do is just get right back into your normal routine after your vacation. That is what you need to do. Don't worry about, what you did. Even if you set intentions going into the vacation and you went completely off those intentions or completely off the rails over vacation, just get back into your normal routine, right? Because it doesn't matter what we do some of the time. It matters what we do most of the time. Consistency is the biggest key in any transformation. And again, it doesn't matter. I'll just say that saying again. It's one of my favorite sayings. It doesn't matter what you do some of the time. It matters what you do most of the time, right? So that would be kind of my breakdown on tips for vacation and traveling, things like that. So just kind of going over some main points that I mentioned. The first thing, setting intentions, right? Setting intentions going into whatever it is. Is it your main vacation for the year? Is it just another kind of mini trip, or is it a holiday weekend, or whatever it may be? Set your intentions going into it. Plan ahead, write them down so that you know what you intend to do and why you're intending to do that, because how does it align with your goals right now, right? Thinking and planning ahead, right? For the foods that you want to splurge on, like, are they going to actually be worth it for you? What's worth it? What's not? Just being mindful, being aware of what you're consuming, being aware of portion sizes, planning ahead, having these tools and these strategies kind of in the back of your mind, making sure you're setting yourself up for success by stocking up on protein and things like that. Have a plan, have options available, right? Be confident in your choices that you're making. Be confident. Don't feel guilty. Don't make a choice and then immediately regret it, because that's just going to make you feel worse and worse over the course of the vacation or even when you get back. So again, really just going into it with set intentions and with a strategic plan is going to be the best option. And planning ahead again, right? That's the biggest thing. So also realize, with the guilt factor, like, it's okay to consume foods that you might not normally consume when you're on vacation. This is the time to do that, right? You don't have to feel guilty about it. You shouldn't feel guilty about it. You are living your life. You are, this is real life. You should be able to enjoy a deep fried burrito with fried plantains in it once every year, right? Or some cupcakes or some ice cream. Like, that's okay. And that is what, vacation is for. But again, it goes back to just being mindful of these things. Like, you don't need to eat that cupcake every single day on vacation just because you can, right? Maybe you have it once or you have it twice. You don't need to consume, 10 lava flows or Mai Tais or strawberry daiquiris every single day on vacation just because you can. You can consume one, you can have one and enjoy it, or have 2 if that's really what you want to do. But just be mindful of these things. That's the biggest thing. So again, just to end this, like, just know what's worth it and what's not. Know where you are at this point in time with your personal goals. Like, what stage are you in with your goals? Where are you at with that? And where do you want to be in 3 months from now? And what are you doing right now and during this period of time to be that person that you want to be in 3 months from now, in 6 months from now? Or what goals do you want to achieve in that time period? Okay, what do you need to do now to still stick within those goals? Or are you willing to make that trade-off right now for a week of maybe, kind of being more flexible, and maybe you're pushing off a week of your goals, right? Which is totally fine, right? For me, again, when I went to Hawaii, I took a full diet break week. I even took a week, but like half the week before that, because it was my birthday, I took like a week and a half off. And I knew that was going to obviously delay my progress in my fat loss phase, but that was a trade-off that I was willing to make and I wanted to make. And so, yeah, maybe it delayed my progress for a little bit, but I came back, got right back on track, and I'm moving back in the direction of where I want to be. So yeah, maybe it takes a little bit longer, but I'm willing to make that trade-off for what I wanted to do, right? So just be smart about it. Be mindful of the choices that you're making. Make sure that those choices that you're making are aligned with your goals. And that is the best you can do, right? So I hope that these tips helped. I hope that you took some value away from this episode. Again, if you are going into this with an intention, if you're going into what you're doing with intention and with a plan and with a strategy, that is the best thing you can do to set yourself up for success and to set yourself up for not feeling any guilt, when you return. So that would be, again, biggest advice there. So yeah, I hope that helped. Like I mentioned in the beginning of the episode, I am doing a giveaway right now for a 1-hour free consult call to answer questions that you have about your particular nutrition protocol or your training protocol or anything related to nutrition or exercise, lifestyle, whatever it may be. I'm offering that. And to be entered into that giveaway, all you have to do is leave a rating and review on iTunes. If you've already left one in the past, you can, just borrow a spouse's phone or a friend's phone and leave a rating review from their phone, because iTunes doesn't let you leave one twice. So if you want to be entered into that giveaway, just you can do it that way. If you're listening on a different platform like Spotify or Stitcher or somewhere in that regard, you can just, again, borrow someone else's phone who listens to podcasts on iTunes, or if they have an Apple phone or an iPad or whatever it may be, and they have access to the podcast app, you can just borrow that and just search for MetFlex and Chill, and you can scroll down to the bottom and hit the rating and review area, and you will click the 5-star rating, hopefully 5 stars, and just add into the title box. There's like a title box for your review. Just title it with anything that you want, with your name, whatever it may be. And then in the text box, you can just leave a few sentences about, what you're enjoying about the show, anything that taken away from the show, any feedback you have, any guests that you want me to have on in the future. You can put it all in that review, and that would be super, super helpful. And then I will be choosing a winner of the giveaway over the next few weeks. So starting from today, over the course of the next few weeks, it will be open to leave reviews, and then I will choose a winner and I will announce it on a future podcast. So again, that would really help us to rank higher on iTunes in the health podcast category, which helps more people see the show and helps more people in general. So that's the goal. And yeah, hopefully you can do that. And that's all I have for you today. Look forward to chatting with you on the next show. And we have some really exciting guests coming on in the near future. So stay tuned for that. All right, I'll chat with you next time.